Looks like we are here on the first ever Hank Design Studio YouTube live stream. Thank you all for joining. This is my first time doing a stream on YouTube. I'm super excited, nervous, hungry, motivated. Just a lot of mixed emotions right now. But no, thank you all. It is the end of another Wednesday. So I decided to take some time out and illustrate some fun things, but I didn't want to do it alone. So I wanted to create this live stream to invite you all to come hang with me, and we are going to draw together. I want to make this as fun as possible. It's not scripted. Anything can happen, so bear with me, y'all. I'm happy. I'm ready to have some fun. If you're drawing along with me, please feel free. Ask me any questions. I will be working on the iPad, and today we are going to be illustrating some fuzzies. So I already sketched out one concept that I think could be kind of fun, but we'll kind of start from the beginning so that you all can kind of see my process, and hopefully this will help you in your process whenever you're trying to come up with ideas. And yeah, and we're just going to see how this goes. So feel free to hop in the chat. If you're not able to catch the live, click back through any parts that you want to know more about, and we're gonna see how this goes. So let's jump right into it. All right, again, thank you all for being here. I am looking on two different screens, so I'm double checking to make sure everything looks good on YouTube as well as on the back end, but it looks like everything is going smooth. But we're gonna see how this goes. But now let's get into it. So we have our sketch here. I am working on the iPad Pro using the Procreate app for today. And I'm going to illustrate a little fuzzy. So I had a fun idea because I know everything is kind of into the quarantine state and we're all staying at home and kicking it. I wanted to kind of do something kind of funny of like, what if one of these fuzzies were kind of pressed up against the glass, and kind of see how that looks. So I think we're going to see how this turns out. As you can see, I'm kind of already ahead with a little bit of a rough sketch, but I'm going to start over so you guys can kind of see a little bit of how this goes. Feel free to ask any questions. Let me know. I have music playing in the background. I can't hear it, but I wanted to give y'all some vibes to kind of chill. So let me know if it's too loud or you have trouble hearing me. Yeah, we're going to have some fun. All right. But guys, let me know how your day has been. Hope everything has been going good. Hope you guys are staying inspired and having some kind of fun in the midst of all this, and staying, creative and making things however the best way you can. All right, so now let's kind of get into it. So we're gonna start usually with these. I always try to make it really rough in the beginning. I don't try to go too clean or anything. I just want to get an idea of roughly what I'm planning on doing. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit because I already have a sketch, but I'm going to show you guys a little bit of how I started. So we try to have a little fun. In this part, you really want to stay loose. You don't want to feel too confined. You just want to kind of get an idea of just the overall anatomy of what you're working with. So with this, you can kind of see I'm working with a technical pencil. Something that's not necessarily meant to do the whole job, but we're gonna get a good idea of what's gonna happen. So ideally I want this person to be pressed up against the glass, and if you're familiar with the fuzzies, they're very exaggerated when it comes to like just their overall anatomy with their body parts and things like that. So we're gonna kind of roughly sketching here a little bit about like how this person is going to be pressed up against the glass. And don't worry, we'll get into details later, so just bear with me. Right. So it looks like this person is going to kind of be sideways, almost like, they're almost smushed against that glass. And let's see, let's give him a little bit of a mouth, some lips here. Again, just really, really rough sketches. You guys make sure you're very loose with this. You don't want to be too structured or scripted on all of this. All right, I got a note it says pad, turn the music down. Sorry if it's too loud. Alright, so we're getting there, giving ourselves a little bit of a cheek. Probably put like a little ear or something right here. I feel like the ear probably be like, oops. I feel like the ear probably like right here. Maybe. Let's probably make the cheek a little bit loud, a bit wider, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the music, y'all, so I said make it loud. Alright, so we got a little bit of a face. Let's get a person in a little hat. I feel like it's still cold, so I'm down here in Alabama, and for some reason our springs are never normal, so we are experiencing a little bit of colder than usual spring days, so we're gonna give our person a little bit of a beanie here. Just to kinda... And again with these, even though I am drawing very rough and sometimes like, you know, a little bit of these skinny lines, I try to keep the shapes very simple. So nothing outside of your circles, your squares, your rectangles, or any complicated line. Keep it very, very simple. You don't want to lose yourself when you're trying to go back and actually make your shape, because at times that can get very complicated, especially if you're not used to drawing all the time. So if anyone's out there that's struggling with illustration, just know all of this is just simple shapes. Keep it very, very simple. All right, so looks like we got ourselves a little head here. And the cool thing about working on the iPad and just working on the go, is very easy to kind of adjust. And if you're like me, my day-to-days, I'm literally clicking on a mouse or like pressing the little trackpad on my laptop all day. So it feels good not to have to put so much pressure on your fingers. So being able to scale on the go is definitely a nice touch. All right. So now we got ourselves a head here. I think we got something good. So let's compare it to what we had before. So just going back to our previous layers, you can kind of see this person is smushed. We're gonna bring it down just a little bit, just so we can see more of that beanie. All right. So now we're gonna go in and add another layer here. And the reason I separate these layers is just so I can get an understanding of the different body parts, right? So if, let's say down the road we wanted to animate this, it's really good to understand like where your limbs are separated, and it just makes the whole animation process a lot easier. But in this case, we're gonna keep it still, and we're gonna separate the hand that's gonna be pressed up against the glass itself, just so we can kind of work on separate layers and not have to erase or adjust a lot to what we already made. So let me show you a quick trick of what you can do with the hands. Fingers and hands tend to be a little bit tricky, but in this case we're going to keep it very simple. So one way you can start by drawing a square like so. And you want to think of this kind of like the palm of your hand. So if you see the palm of your hand, you have kind of this simple square that, you know, joins all the fingers, or brings all the fingers together. And the way you position that is going to tell you where your fingers are going. So if your hand, sorry to get my camera right, but if your square is tilted more to the right, you can tell that your 4 fingers here are going to be tilted to the right, along with your thumb. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb that you guys can use and practice with hand drawing. Let's kind of scale this down just a little bit. And this will be our right hand. So with him facing us, let's make our thumb on this side. Again, using very, very simple shapes. And then we're going to start going into the index. Now I know this is overlapping, but we are going to, we'll scale this down just a little bit more, just so it'll make a little bit more sense. Again, working very rough. So we got ourselves roughly a hand. Again, you can see just simple squares, simple rectangles. Yeah. All right. So, and if you guys have some, unique techniques about drawing hands, please feel free to share them in the chat. I want to make this as helpful as possible. All right, so we see that our hand is covering up a face, so we're going to scale this down just a little bit. Let's maybe put it like right here, and maybe we can scale our hand down just a little bit. Okay. All right, let's give our hands a little bit of a limb. All right. Oops. My bad. All right, so we got ourselves a hand, and just to save time so that we don't have to redraw the hand, what's really cool about using Procreate is you're able to duplicate layers, and we can simply just make a duplicate of that layer, select it, and just flip it, and boom, we got ourselves the left hand. And let's kind of offset this just a little bit. Offset. I knew I was gonna laugh at that one. Offset that just a little bit, just to kind of give it a little bit of distinction. And looking at it, I feel like if someone's gonna be smushed against the glass, this hand will probably be up here, right? Yeah, I can kind of see that. Like, ideally, it'll be kind of like right here. Yeah, I think so. All right. Now we can work again and add our body. Again, separating everything simply by adding another layer and just changing your colors. As you can see, my color palette is all over the place. I advise you to be more organized than I am, but definitely a good tip to make sure your palettes and layers are organized so that you don't have to embarrass yourself on YouTube Live, so that's all good. All right, so we'll get us a lighter color. All right, so now just thinking about the anatomy of this person, because their head is, taking up most of that composition, we know that the upper part of their torso is going to occupy much of this area here. So let's go in and see how we can give this person a body. And don't be afraid to draw over what you already have. Again, none of that is going to matter once we get into the coloring stage. So let's just assume that there's a sleeve here. Let's get a person like a little bit of a collar. As you can see, kind of a rough collar. And now let's go into the other sleeve here. And because this arm is up here, we're going to see how we can connect it. So ideally, our hand, the rest of our arm is going to go down this way, and it's going to come back this way. So let's go in and just draw kind of a rough line here, and then just assume that it's going to come up roughly around this way. Yeah. Make that sleeve a little bit thicker. Check in the chat. So how do you flip? So easy way you can flip is if you have a layer and you select it, make sure that layer is selected, and you can go up here to the arrow part. Is arrow right? Let me see if I can draw. I can't show y'all my actual cursor, but the arrow right there, once you select that, it'll bring up a little small menu here at the bottom, and you can see here it says flip horizontally or flip vertically, and just simply tap that, and they'll give you that option to flip whatever is on that layer. But you got to make sure that layer is selected in your layers panel. Okay. All right, so I hope that helped. so it looks like we pretty much got our person set. You kind of see where it's coming together. I still think the head can come up a little bit more. So now, unfortunately, where I messed up at is that I have the sleeve layer and kind of this other, the sleeve sketch and this other kind of like random sketch all in the same layer as the head, but that is okay. Because what we're gonna do is select this little S thing right up here in the top corner, and we're just gonna draw kind of this line around the head. And we're gonna hit the arrow to select it, and let's scale it. Let's scale it down just a little bit. I think the overall body, torso, so to say, can come on down just a little bit. All right. Now just to add a little bit of details to really tell that story of being against the glass. You know, glass have that kind of a weird looking sheen, so to say. So we're just gonna do some rough lines here to kind of give that glass effect. Alright, so that, my friends, we have ourselves a rough sketch. Again, once we get done with this, it's gonna look completely different. So let's get into the solid part and start getting our color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just flatten these layers and just make it all one, because I don't necessarily need to separate them. Only thing I need was the colors just to be able to get my composition right. So let's go ahead and turn down the opacity on this. Easy way to do that is just tap the little N right there on the layer, and then it'll open up this opacity and just turn it. Let's go all the way down to about, let's say about 30%. I think that's fine, just for easy numbers. But we're gonna get into some color. So I typically like to start with the background color just so I can get an understanding of the type of colors I want to use. And I don't want to use too many colors. I try to stick to one palette, but we'll get it deeper into that. So let's kind of find our base color that we want to work with. I feel like this yellow will be fun. Let me see, what are some other options? Maybe something like this pinkish, like fuchsia color. I'm kind of digging that. I feel like that's dope. Let's work with that. Kind of hard to see the hands, but it's all good. All right, so let's turn this opacity up on our sketch just a little bit so we can see it, and we're going to dive into our solids. The big thing to keep in mind with doing the solids, again, we're going to stay with simple shapes, but you want to get an understanding that layers are just stacks. So all it is that anything that's under that layer is going to show behind, it's going to look like it's behind whatever is on top of that layer, and you'll see what I mean here. So let's do the easy part, the cheat. Actually, no, let's actually back up. Let's do this. So let's go back and let's change our background back to white, because I forgot to add the quote unquote like the smush effect. So if you know, when you're smushed against the glass, you can see there's kind of a little slight change in the skin tone, and you'll see what I mean here. So let's go in and kind of select a bright color. Let's kind of do a red. I think the red will be fine. And let's just kind of do, let's do like a rough blob shape here. Again, it might be a little bit smoother once we get into our color, but we just want to get like some rough shapes to show kind of where the lips and the face is pressed up against the glass. Put a little bit here. Probably put a little bit there. Let's see. I feel like that part will be pressed. And then same thing with the hands. You probably want to get a different color for that. But you want to show kind of like where the skin, so to say, will be pressed up against the glass, so we can really get that effect. still adding some little bit of blobs for the skin. Again, these do not have to be perfect. We just want to get an idea. And let's say a little bit of the hat might get pressed in there. All right. Got ourselves a blob. Let me see. I think the arm might be a little bit pressed in there too. Okay. All right, now we have a finalized rough sketch. All right, again, we're gonna combine those layers because I drew on this layer that's on top. And if you take your 2 fingers, you can just like put your fingers on the layers that you want to combine and just slide them down together, and you'll start seeing the layers become one. All right, so let's turn down this opacity and let's get into our colors. All right, so let's change our background back to the color where we had it. I feel like we had like this fun little fuchsia color. All right, and let's see, let's make our person, let's do our skin purple. I think purple would be fine for this one. And typically I use an airbrush. So in these, you kind of have to get used to these brushes. If you're not familiar with a lot of them, some of them you may have to go in and tweak yourself. But just have fun with it, right? Just, have fun, adjust the settings. You can kind of see where it affects overall this, how it comes out. The spacing gives you more dots, jitters, streamlines, roughly like the smoothness of it. But you got to play with it just to kind of make it suitable for you. And once you customize it, you'll see like this little icon on the edge of that brush selection, and that lets you know that's a custom brush. So let's use that one, and we're gonna start with our cheek. We're gonna draw ourselves like a little bit of a circle here. And if you hold that shape, it'll make a almost like a straight line for the circle. And if you take your finger while you're holding it with your pencil, just press on the screen and it gives you more of a perfect circle. So you kind of see that little jolt there. We're gonna hold that and then let it go at the same time, and click and drag our color from the corner into the middle. Make sure that every is enclosed into a shape, and that'll fill in. So boom, got ourselves a young cheek. Let's go and add a layer under that and do one for our head. Same thing, draw a circle, hold it down, let it go, and then drag your color inside of that. Boom. Alright, and you're just gonna repeat this for basically every shape that you're gonna have. So get into our eye. Let's make our eye a little bit of a brighter color. Make sure these are separated, so you don't want to have 2 parts of the body on the same layer. Make sure you keep them separated as possible. Okay. All right, let's go into the lips. I'm going to increase the size of this because essentially it's just going to be a stroke. Just going to up that a little bit. We got most of our head here, and let's add a stroke for the eyebrow. Let's give a person like an orange eyebrow. I'm not thinking that. Maybe a bluish eyebrow, maybe. I like that. All right. Now let's get into the hat. So as you can see in the sketch, the hat is going to cover up most of the head. So we want to make sure that layer is right on top, and we want to make sure it's under the, eyebrows. Oops, so you guys can see that. Under the eyebrows, eye, and the lips. So let's go ahead and make sure that layer is under there, and let's give this person, let's give him a yellow hat. Make sure your brush is selected again. Alright, same thing, add some shapes. Circle. Hold it. Alright. Now looks like we got majority of our head done. So let's go into the neck part. Now a good trick if you guys want a spot color, what you can do is if you take your finger and just press onto the screen and hold it, you'll get this little icon here. And you can just drag it across any part of your illustration to pick up that color. Just make sure that little dot in the middle is above the color that you want to choose from. So because this is the neck, we're going to keep it with the same skin color, and we're going to make sure our layer is under everything that we've done so far, and we're going to draw a straight line just like that. Boom. Now we got ourselves a neck. Alright, so that is our head. So what you can do to stay organized is if you just slide left on your layers, you can see it select. Just go ahead and do the same thing on each layer and just hit group, and you can name this head. So now let's get into the body and let's give this man some swag. Alright, so he has a yellow hat on. I guess he would have we'll give him like a orangish yellow swag, I guess you could say. So I think this will be over the head because our collar needs to cover up the bottom of the neck. So let's up that size. Let's see. My bad, y'all. Here we go. Alright, here we go. Boom. Give him a little orange collar. And let's give him a body. Alright. Let's work on the sleeve. Gonna do a simple triangle. Same thing applies if you draw the shape roughly and just hold it. The app would automatically make that shape for you. So got ourselves a little bit of a sleeve there, and then we're gonna go under that and then make ourselves an arm, picking the same color as the skin, and we're just gonna drain the arm straight line out of that. All right, looks like we're kicking with gas, folks, and then we draw a line right there. To the hand, and we're gonna make this a separate layer. So let's go back so we can see. We're gonna hide what we have so far. We'll just say this is body and arm. Okay. All right, and we're just gonna hide that just so we can see and change our background color back to white. And let's just use this as an opportunity to draw our hands correctly. So let's start with the bottom one. And let's, again, just like how we sketched, we're gonna start with a square here. Let's fill that bad boy in. Again, it doesn't have to be clean. And then I usually up my brush all the way up just to give it some thick fingers, but you can go in and just draw simple lines just like that. Boom, boom, and the pinky. All right, so let's fill this out just a little bit, give it more of some character. And boom, got ourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand. Ah, no, pun. Bad joke, bad joke. All right, and again, just like how we did our hands earlier, we're just gonna duplicate that, and we're gonna pull the same hand, flip it, and then let's pull it right here. Hard to see, so I'm gonna zoom out. And then boom. So be very careful whenever you're scaling something. If it goes off the screen like this, like you can see in the corner, and you try to move it again, it does cut off. So be very careful of that, because it does not forgive if you mess up like that. So don't be sorry, be careful. Alright. Looks like we got our hands pretty much made. Let's bring back our other things. Just kind of fix where we see it needs to be fixed. So it looks like our hand's covering up our eye. That's gonna look weird once we start putting this together. So I feel like we can just move our eyebrow and our eye just a little bit. Yeah, maybe make it a little bit bigger. Thickness this out just a little bit. Alright, and we're missing one thing. That is the ear. So let's duplicate our cheek, and then we're just gonna shrink it just to make it simple. Fix our hand just a little bit up here. And now I'm just being nitpicky. I'm just going through and tweaking what I see. I feel like our arm can be a little bit thicker. Oops. Give him some meat on his bones. All right. So it looks like we're in a good spot. So let's go ahead and bring back our background color, and we are going to get into the fun part, and that's adding our fuzz. All right, so nope, I lied again. So let's go back. So we need to add our blobs in here, but that's going to be a lot easier because we have our solid shapes made. So let's go in, rename this hands, and add our glass blobs just to get that effect. So what we can do is, if you go into the layer, and let's start with the head, and let's go ahead and just select the layer that we want to start with, so we know we had some on the cheek. And if you hit select, that's going to allow everything to be isolated. You can kind of see these little lines, and it's basically telling us that we can only illustrate in that area. So you kind of see, like, I'm drawing now, but you can't see unless I go anywhere in the area across the cheek part, because that's the only thing we have isolated in that layer. So let's use that to our advantage and add another layer on top of that, still with the selected, and let's go ahead and add kind of a darker purple. I feel like it'll be a little bit darker, yeah, if it's smushed up against the glass. Again, these do not have to be perfect at all. just enough to get the idea across. And honestly, it might not have to be that dark, honestly. Let's see. Let's tweak it just a little bit. There we go. I like that. Maybe we can be a little more rounded. Oops. Alright. So now we're going to repeat the same steps throughout the other layers. So let's go ahead and work through this a little bit quicker. Oops. Let's separate that. Kind of weird with the eye. So maybe it'll be one right there. Maybe. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Give our ear a little bit of pressure. And then on to the face. The face is just gonna have a little bit here, so we're not gonna go too crazy. Cause ideally that cheek is gonna take a lot of that space. Being smooshed. Alright. Then let's get into the eyebrow. And it's kind of weird, sometimes you gotta pick and choose where you want to use lighter or darker colors. Honestly, I don't have a formula for what's like the best approach for that. I usually just go back and forth between picking a darker version of that color or a lighter version of the color, and then ultimately just deciding on what makes the most sense. So really to each his own, but just test. Like, don't feel like once you make a decision, you don't have to be stuck there. I promise you can get out. Alright. Got ourselves a cheek and a face that is smooshed. And let's get into the hat. And just to speed this up, we are going to basically just make a layer on top of all of them. So let's add a layer on top. Select that color, and then maybe we select a lighter version of that color. Again, if y'all having trouble like drawing smooth lines on here, it may be a setting in your brush that may not be working the best for you right now, but just go in and adjust and practice with those settings. I promise it'll get a lot smoother. So it looks like we got our head there. It looks like it's smashed against some glass. So now we're going to take the same approach and go back into our hands and add those same blobs that we sketched out earlier. So I'm just going to add that into the group because I can basically make all this one layer and it won't affect us once we get into the fuzziness. So let's go in, add some of these smush effects. Again, keep it simple, just make a thick brush. Just go in and make some like squiggly lines. Just enough to give us that ridge effect in the fingers. Actually, let's back up. So maybe we make it more like the fingertips. There we go. I feel like that makes more sense. Then same with the thumb. Maybe a little bit for the part of the wrist. And then maybe a little bit of a line here. That's good. And we're gonna do the same thing here up top. Again, I'm just tilting my artboard just to make it comfortable for me. I'm right-handed, so when I draw, so tilt what's comfortable for you. Alright. Let's go in, just adding a little bit, some blobs, go off screen just a little bit. Below the fingers, and then we'll just add a little weird one just for the palm. Okay. Now let's go in, find our arm here, which is going to be in our body, and do the same exact thing. And we can draw right on this layer because again, we're just going to be shading on top of this anyway. Alright, looks like we got ourselves a smush person here. I think it's getting there. And then maybe we add a little bit of the same effect for the hat to the shirts. Let's see. Alright, and then maybe a little bit here. All right, so I think that looks good. Sweet. So now we're gonna get into the fun part, and that's our actual shading. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start, I typically like to start with the head. Those are the most fun to really get into. You can really define basically where it's gonna go depending on how you adjust with the head. So what you can do is select the layer here and hit alpha lock. And it does the same thing as the selected version that we did earlier. Only thing is you just don't have those lines. And it draws right on top of that layer. So you can't add a layer and just have that section. This affects only that layer and that layer only. So you'll see what I mean. So we're gonna go in there, have that selected, and we are going to select a touch-up section in our brush library, and we're gonna hit up the noise brush. This is a duplicate of the default brush in here, and I adjusted it just a little bit to kind of feel the way I wanted to feel. Again, you guys have to make this on your own just to kind of see what feels right for you. But you can go in and just kind of adjust the scatter, the weight, again, the streamline, the jitter. Do whatever it takes to make it feel like what you wanted to feel. And I adjusted this. And I'll put this file up somewhere, and I'll let you guys know in the comments once this file is up so that you guys can check it out. If you're using the Procreate app, feel free to open this up and, do what you want with it so you kind of see what I've done. All right, so with that selected and with our neck layer on an alpha lock, we're gonna go in and start adding some shading. Turn our opacity up here on the left side all the way up. And then we're gonna go in and just lightly go in and draw a little bit of shade. Feels a little bit smooth, so I may have to adjust or use the default brush. Yeah, it feels too smooth. Let's kind of use the other one. I feel like it's a little bit more scattered. There we go. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Alright, we'll go in and add just a little bit of shadow. And it has a shadow effect because we have all the other shapes on top of it. So it looks like more of the head is being defined and it's blocking some of that light. Let's go in, let's add a white color and just give us a little bit of a highlight, have some kind of light coming through. Alright, then we're just gonna work our way up. So we have our head highlight. Let's go back into a darker purple. And then we're just gonna lightly shade and give some definition, some depth to our cheek. Some depth from our lips, from our eyes. Again, draw really, really lightly just so you can kind of have room to back up and add more wherever you see fit. And then maybe we use a darker color, maybe like this darkish blue color. So we getting there, y'all. And let's jump up. I think we can go ahead and combine our highlights with our lips, and then we're gonna do the same type of effect. Let's get ourselves a lighter purple, and then draw some highlights. Oops. Actually, no, let's back up. Maybe we keep them separate. This, because it's smush, we know there's only a limited amount of light that's coming through on the edges, so we're gonna kind of be careful and not overlap too much. Just a little bit there, and then use a darker blue to kind of give us some shadows. Maybe even on the highlights we add a little bit of color. Just lightly though. And again, we're just repeating that all the way through each shape, so you guys just enjoy the music. I'm gonna keep walking through this, and we're going to get this bad boy defined. Found a better color here. us a little bit of texture here on the highlights. Not the highlights, I'm sorry, but the press parts. Just to kind of feel like it's against the glass. Same effect. Just slightly putting it on there. Let's get down to a cheek. Into our hats. And one thing to keep note of, y'all, I didn't say this in the beginning, but one thing I always do is always point out a light source. So just to give you guys what I understanding what I mean is, as you can see, I have my highlights coming on the left side essentially of everything. So it looks like all my light is coming from this way. That's not necessarily a rule, but you just want to kind of establish that early on to just say, okay, you want to make sure you know where your light is coming from, and that lets you know which side that your shadows are actually on. And that gives you a little bit of understanding of depth. So that way you're not having light on this side and shadows on this side, and then another shape you have shadows on this side and light on the other side. And it keeps everything uniform. So in the beginning, if you just have to do a simple arrow or just like maybe some rays or something to just remind you where your light is coming from, so that way you're not confusing yourself when you get into making your shadows. A little quick tip for your Wednesday night. Alright, so let's go in here and start adding some light to this bad boy. Effect. And then the last little bump here. Get into the body. We get in there, y'all. So you can see we're adding shadows to basically the body parts, and then we clear up the shirts. I'm adding just a little bit of a white texture over the kind of the smush part, just to give it some of that glass effect. It's not perfect, it's not meant to be perfect, but just enough to kind of pull that effect off and tell that story a little bit better. I promise it'll make sense in the end. So let's kind of to it. And I think what we're gonna do is I want to see how these look if we lower the opacity just a little bit. Maybe. Yeah, maybe so. Let's add a little bit more to this cheek. Fight this cheek in half some more. Light strokes. Let's go into the shirts, add just a little bit more. I feel like that can come down just a little bit more too. Alright, so now it looks like we are just about done. So we're going to get into our hands, and we're going to go ahead and close these two up. And we're just going to work off one layer so that way we don't complicate it. Because if I was going to animate, I would keep it separate, but in this case we're going to keep it very simple. And let's go ahead and get into the nitty gritty of this. Add some highlights on the sides. Again, because our light source is coming from that way, so it just makes more sense. Then we're gonna get into a darker color and add some shadows. Oops, so we got a little miss out right there. Oh, okay, I see where it is. Looks like we had an extra mark here, so let me get rid of that. Fair, okay. Just gonna add a little bit of darkness here. Push the highlights just a little bit more. Not too crazy, and then we're just gonna add a little bit of the white effect on top of the smush parts. Again, it's all alpha-matted, so you're not gonna be able to see it on other layers. It's only gonna affect the layers that you are on. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing with this arm here. Alpha lock it, select it, share highlights up top, and then shadows on the bottom. And then because this is one layer, we're going to cheat a little bit and then add a little bit of that glass effect right there. add some depth to this collar. And be sure to always step back and zoom out of your work just to make sure you're seeing everything, because sometimes you can get caught up being so close to it and you realize you missed more than you thought you did. Let's make this kind of a smooshed collar too. Then add a little bit of a highlight. All right. So we are just about there, my friends. We have pretty much the heavy part done, and we're gonna hide our sketch in the back just to kind of clean it up. So, oh, guys, I am overlooking everything. I forgot about the right hand. All right, let's go in and add our highlights. Get those in there, and then let's go into our shadows. Same effect for the smush part. Just add a little bit of a glass texture in there. And I say texture, but it's just, add a little bit of white speckles in there just to give it a glass feel, glassy feel. All right, we are almost there, y'all. So we pretty much got it set up. It's starting to look really good. But I feel like it's almost too clear. It looks like it's just some shapes on there. I don't really get a sense of the glass effect just yet. So yeah, a little bit in here. So I'm gonna show you a trick that we can do. So let's add a layer on the very top of everything, and let's just make it all white. Just simply drag a color in there and make it all white. Color it in, whatever you see fit. And what we're gonna do is gonna go to that layer and we're gonna drop the opacity down. Let's say to about like right there. Yep. And what we're gonna do, and let's see how this works out. I'm literally trying this on the fly, y'all. So I'm gonna put a mask on there, and a layer mask, so that I don't have to erase. I can just hide and reveal. And we're gonna go through here and see if we can add like streaks in here. And we're gonna get us a hard brush. Let's kind of go through and add a little bit of a line here. There's a line there. And just make straight lines, just to get enough of that streak look and really look like we're pressed against that glass. Nice. I'm digging that. And then one thing we can do too, and just to have it as a little trick, is you can go in and just kind of hide the effect, the layer that we just added on, this glass effect, and just go in and kind of clean up a little bit of the smushed area. And what that's going to give us is an effect that, when you're smushed against the glass, there's not a lot of fog or anything in when you're looking at it, so to say. So this is going to allow us to kind of really push that effect more thoroughly. There is a quicker way, but because we put so much of the layers together, I messed up and didn't make them all separate, so we could at least just kind of had them all on one layer, then selected them and just masked them. But we're gonna go the long way just for the sake of the video, just have some fun. But again, just to kind of get that effect, and you guys might be drawing something completely different, but just have fun and just keep those principles in mind. That will make your life a whole lot easier. But the point of this is just to have fun. But you're gonna see how this comes out. Getting the same type of effects apply even when you're masking. So for these hands, looks like we're still going good for the first time to stream. You guys make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I promise to do more streams in the future, so that way we can have some fun together and make more fuzzies. And who knows, maybe next time we'll start adding some guest drawing on here. So I know this is not very perfect, but we're just doing enough to get the point across. Finish up the hand here. All right. Well, that, my friends, looks like we have ourselves a finished sketch. Now you can go in and add just kind of a little bit of some effects. There's some really neat brushes to really pull that glass feature out. I mean, you can go into luminous and have kind of like this shiny effect, just to kind of give that sense of a clean glass. We can even go in and select these layers and maybe add like a little bit of a sheen to the edges of these. Let's see See how these will look. Oops. Just to kind of give them a little bit of a sheen effect. Awesome. I think it needs one more layer of white, and we're just gonna turn opacity down just enough. Select. And then we're gonna add ourselves some same type of mask. Awesome. Turn the selection layer off. Turn this down just a little bit. Actually, you know, we don't really need it. Awesome. Guys, looks like we have ourselves a final sketch here. Obviously, you can see there's a little bit of tweaking that probably be made. That'll probably end up doing. Oops, looks like we've missed a little bit of part. But that is essentially it. Again, I really do appreciate you all coming to hang with me on this Wednesday night. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this and more live streams in the future. And even drop your suggestions in the comments. What can make this show better? And I want to do more while we're in home trying to stay creative as possible. Thank you all for coming and kick it with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace. Until next time.